Okay, so welcome back everyone, and we now proceed to a panel discussion on data, climate and society. We have an excellent set of panelists for us today, and we'll start off by introducing someone who joined IIT, who joined the IGRAC at the same time I was joining IIT here. I have a feeling you have had more fun than I have. But, and I'm very glad to introduce Dr. Elisabeth Lictevout. Elisabeth was appointed as the new director of IGRAC in 2022. She's a hydrogeologist with a PhD in water sciences and MSc in sustainable management and protection of water resources, and has 3 decades of experience working worldwide, a lot in South America, if I remember correctly. And it's going to be wonderful to listen to you and your discussions on groundwater. Elisabeth, please take the stage.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So I have 10 minutes, so I will start. I will speak about the role of in-situ data in understanding groundwater system. I've been asked to speak about that, and that's very interesting for us because IGRAC focus on data. But why to focus on data as an organization? So data is observation, and observation is the essence of natural sciences and hydrogeology. We are at IGRAC, we are almost all hydrogeologists. But data, okay. So data is a mean, so it's not an end. And data answer a question. So on the knowledge pyramid here, where we have data as a foundation, as the basis of to then get information, knowledge, and wisdom. But we have to take into account that data comes to answer questions. So first comes the question. And for groundwater, data, I would say, is even more important. Why? In this picture, I think you all see that the river is dry, right? We can see there is a river and this river is dry. But I'm very curious of what, I have a pointer, I will try. What are your questions, no, regarding groundwater in this big plain? This is north of Chile. I look always for pictures, and the north of Atacama desert. I can guess, I don't know. First question is there groundwater here? And then if yes, how deep, yeah? But we cannot see it, yeah? And if we don't have data, we cannot know. And so data is key to make visible groundwater system. But in case of groundwater, there is also another dimension to the importance of data and information. Then it's that it's a very easy ground. As we cannot see it, it's a very easy ground, maybe to speak here, to first myth. A lot of imagination, a lot of myth. I have always where the groundwater comes from, who is taking all the groundwater, yeah, and unfortunately also for nourishing and for the misuse of information for self-interest, political or economical. So yeah, data is important. So we. At IGRAC, we are working on a global scale to collect data and make it open and accessible to everyone. So this is a snapshot of the GGMN, the Global Groundwater Monitoring System. This is a global database of groundwater for, we have different sources, but the GGMN is only data coming from national monitoring program. So national institution in charge of groundwater. We have many groundwater levels, but more and more groundwater quality data. Now 47 countries, around 150,000 stations, and this is growing. This is our major, we are very proud of that now. We are continuously increasing, including countries. So this is at global scale, what is available at national level. Okay, we quickly, I will not enter into detail. What do we do? We have data, what do we do with that? So how we get meaningful information of the data sets to advance groundwater sustainable management. So we use different indicators to try to understand regional patterns and hotspots. Each indicator responds to focus on different things, respond different questions, and have different limitations. That's why it's different to analyze data from different angles to overcome those limitations. So here we use the groundwater level ranking. Basically, it gives you the picture, the status of groundwater levels, in this case, compared to history. So if past year was above normal, normal, below normal. And here we have, so I took Europe as an example because for 2023 and 2024, we see a lot of difference, so it's more visible, but we have also, we have 47 countries around the world in all the continents. So here we see, for example, in 2024 that we have widespread recovery in Western Europe due to above normal precipitation, but we have also, my pointer, we have also persistent deficit in Hungary, northern Poland, southern Portugal, and the Mediterranean border in general. And we use other indicators. For example, the sense slope. This shows the groundwater level change in meter per year. So this is the magnitude of the change. And how big is the change? This is a question that this indicator answers. In orange color, we have declining trends more than 5 meters in 20 years. And in blue, more than 5 meters rising in 20 years. And I take again, I know, I thought I took, no. Okay, so we can, and we start seeing regional hotspot, regional patterns and hotspot around the world. The last, and then we use Mann-Kendall test. The Mann-Kendall test is used to identify statistical significance of increasing or decreasing trend and the change to REN index. I don't go into detail, but if you want deeper information, we can discuss later and I can send information. And the Mann-Kendall test focus on the significance of the increasing or decreasing trend, and the CRI highlight the strength of the observation relative to the variability of the time series. No, this is all time series analysis. So when we analyze both together, we have the significant and noticeable trends. So we have additional insights compared to the sense slope, which is the absolute slope, especially in areas with very small groundwater level change. Again, Europe, because it is quite striking the difference between the sense slope, so absolute slope, where we see weak absolute slope, so relatively small groundwater level change in 20 years, and on the left side, but on the right side, we have the Mann-Kendall and CRI show that you see more red, more blue. That means that we have more significant and noticeable trend. So weeks, the change is not that important, but is significant and noticeable. But what does that mean? Yeah, this is what we are looking now. What is the impact on life of those trends and those results? And first, let's look what does decline groundwater levels means and what is in the ground. So I took again a north of Chile example where we observed with our data a weak absolute groundwater level change. So let's say 17 centimeters per year. But we have 75% of the monitoring well that show a significant and noticeable trend. And what does that mean? You may have a very small change in 20 years or in all your time series, but this change, this can have consequences that are dramatic for ecosystem. In this case, with only less than 50 centimeter drop in groundwater level, you dry a wetland. Your wetland become dry. And not only, also for small users that are losing access to groundwater, when actually the bigger users or users that have the capacity to drill deeper, to pump for deeper at deeper depth, will still have maybe access to groundwater for the next 500 years, while small users have lost access and probably may leave the area or yeah. So this is a paradox, and this is a bit the paradox of groundwater in dry areas. And another question quickly, what does rising groundwater levels mean? We have a lot of blue points on our global maps, but does groundwater level rising always mean recovery and good management? Unfortunately not. Groundwater level rise in shallow aquifers can lead to groundwater emergence and flooding. This is a global concern today in coastal areas. So it results in severe consequences, negative consequences on socioeconomic impact, not only water supply, agriculture, ecosystem, water quality, etc. So it happens in Europe. It happens also in the Netherlands. The known case is Nouakchott in Mauritania. It happens also in oasis for different reasons. I will not also go into detail. In oasis in North Africa, in Libya, and Algeria, where vegetation died because of groundwater level rise. So then I had a question, which was, what are the impact of the use of our data in supporting development of strategies, policies, practice, community engagement? So, good question. This is a great challenge to understand the impact and to try to track and evidence those impact. We are working on making our data fair, findable. So findable, reusable, interoperable, and the last one is accessible, which is quite complex. It's not just putting data on your website. And there is another principle, which are the care principle for indigenous data governance, which we are just now trying to understand and see can we apply that to our data set. But speaking about concrete, about concrete impact that we have been able to see. We see that more and more countries are sharing data. There's national platforms with groundwater monitoring data, definitely have been improve access for researchers, for professionals, etc. So groundwater monitoring and reporting is improving in our sense, but I just want to share something very interesting. I think that maybe a lot of researchers use our data set, but maybe the impact we had in the last 2 years is contribution to scientific journalism. I don't know if you have, there is the journalism arena project in Europe. We have contributed to an article in Le Monde, this French national newspaper, about contaminants in groundwater. This has made a lot of noise. It was discussed in the French Parliament, and basically there you see, okay, we have an impact. This is incredible. Was what the scientific journalism is doing today. We have seen very good work in the New York Times, in the Guardians, and I think this is really a way where we can maybe impact policies. And I think that's all. I hope I didn't within the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. I think we'll move on to the next talk. Yeah. That will be by Dr. Annemarie Groot. I think many people who are actually going to hear, so yes. Annemarie Groot is team lead of climate resilience at Wageningen Environmental Research. and she has 20 years of record of research and consultancy for a broad range of societal and environmental issues. Anne-Marie, we look forward to your talk.
Yes, good morning. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So good morning to all of you, and I'm very sorry not being with you in person, but because of the train disruption, I have to give my presentation online. The organizers asked me to organize a presentation around the following guiding questions. Is there echo somehow?
It's fine. No?
It's fine? Because I hear an echo. Is the voice okay? The sound?
Now you need you hear it if you speak.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So I would like to organize the presentation around the three guiding questions. What climate resilience challenge or vulnerability constitutes the focus of your work? What innovative approaches have emerged from your work and how do they contribute to building resilience? And what are the broader implications or impacts of your strategy or approach on policy practice or community engagement? Okay, let me start in general. I'm working for Wageningen Environmental Research. I'm leading a team that is working on climate resilience. And we work, amongst others, on climate resilient landscapes with the use of nature-based adaptation and mitigation strategies. We aim to address flood risk, fresh water shortage, and droughts and salinization. We also work on climate resilient cities. Especially, we work on blue-green infrastructure in cities to reduce heat stress, flood risk, and drought. But today, I would like to focus on something different. We also focus on, that is the co-production of climate services, which is about the co-development of climate information to support climate adaptation decision-making. And I would like to base my presentation on our experience in the CRAFT project, which stands for Climate Resilient Agribusiness for Tomorrow. And in this project, we use I think, a very innovative approach to increase climate resilience as we use a private sector approach. That means that we support small and medium enterprises and cooperatives to deliver climate smart services. Think, for instance, of an input supplier selling climate resilient seeds to farmers, which is in fact a climate smart service. And for us, from Wageningen Environmental Research, the specific challenge is the production or the co-production of climate information to identify and transform climate adaptation measures as viable businesses, not only for today, but also for the long term. I still hear an echo. Do you hear an echo as well? No? I can try to mute my microphone. Okay.
Microphone.
Okay, then so that doesn't help. Okay, let me continue. For our work, we made use of what we call the adaptation cycle. The adaptation cycle is presented by the, let's say, the orange colored blocks. Usually when you would like to co-develop adaptation measures, you first start with building a strong foundation to enable change. You do a thorough climate vulnerability and risk assessment. You identify and assess adaptation options, implementation of the adaptation measures, and you monitor and evaluate the effect of adaptation measures. We, from Wageningen Environmental Research, we were responsible for the climate dimension in the project. We focused mainly on the first 3 steps. So we trained staff, we worked on awareness raising, we organized climate risk assessment workshop. We were involved in the climate change projections. We looked at the impact of the projections on crop yield, and we identified and assessed adaptation options to see which of those adaptation options could be transformed into viable business cases. I will give an example of each of the activities we carried out. I think one of the major activities we carried out was we organized for the value chains the project was focusing on. We organized participatory climate risk assessment workshops, bringing together all different stakeholders from a value chain. For instance, for the sorghum value chain, or the potato value chain, or sunflower in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And in those climate risk assessment workshops, all the work we developed in collaboration with the stakeholders came together. We presented the climate change projections, the impact of climate change on crop yield, potential adaptation measures, and we also discussed the potential business cases. So, for example, for the climate change projections, on the left side, you see the change in temperature for sorghum in Kenya for the coming, let's say, 30 years. On the right side, you see a change in precipitation. So the left side is a change in temperature, and the right side, you see a change in precipitation in the areas which are predominantly used for sorghum growing in Kenya. So this doesn't say much to stakeholders, but when you start talking about what is the impact of these projections on, for instance, potato yield here in Uganda, then it makes already more sense. So the map on the left shows the change in temperature in the 2 growing seasons, in the potato growing areas, and the map on the right shows a change in yield in the potato growing areas, but in 2050. And you see that the green areas are those areas with, let's say, a good yield. And you see that the green areas are shrinking. So that is important information for people who want to invest in potato the coming time. And if you combine it with what we also developed, like crop suitability maps, if you combine it with the crop suitability maps, then it gives, let's say, quite some information for different stakeholders in a value chain to decide whether to invest or not to invest in potato in some of the areas. If you compare the left picture with the right picture, the green areas are highly suitable for potato production. And when you see in future that the green areas are shrinking, that means quite a lot. If you invest in potato in the southwestern part of Tanzania, you can see that your investments are at risk due to climate change. And if you combine it with the with information on the potential effect of adaptation measures, in this case, if you invest in improved potato varieties, you can decrease the risk due to climate change. Because you can see in this picture that an improved potato variety with a short and medium growing cycle could increase the yield and could in fact mitigate the decline in yield due to climate change. So this information is quite interesting for banks, for input suppliers, for cooperatives, for processors to decide whether or not to continue investing in potato, and especially investing in improved seed potato. And indeed, there are, in this case, a farmers corporation in Kenya who said, okay, well, this is interesting, and we will adjust our business plan incorporating the production of improved seed potato in combination with training of farmers. Okay. And what does it mean in terms of impact? Well, currently the project is being evaluated, and these are some of the results for Uganda. It shows the results of different value chain, and you can see that's the blue, the dark blue pillar, that for the 4 value chains under study, that the income of smallholder farmers has significantly increased. Remarkable is, if you look at the Irish potatoes on the left, you see that the yield is not increased, but the income is increased. So probably due to better market prices. Okay, to wind up, the broader implications. I think, and I think you discussed it already this morning, there is quite a gap between data providers and the users of the data, and especially between climate data providers and the users of the climate data. But we learned quite a lot about communication, and especially the importance of visualization and the use of storytelling to increase the actual usability of climate information to support adaptation decision making. What we also experienced was that if you look at the entire value chain, that most of the actors or stakeholders in the value chain are more interested in shorter term predictions, let's say seasonal forecast or predictions for the coming 10 years, than the projections for the coming, let's say, 50 years or 100 years. So providing shorter term prediction will increase the usability of the climate information. And what I think was very interesting to notice, and we see it everywhere in our work, that the financial sector and agribusiness are increasingly interested in climate adaptation to mitigate their own investment risk. Thank you very much for your attention.
There was a
Shall
big
I stop
applause.
sharing?
Yes, thanks. There was a big applause, but you could not hear it because we were mute.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for the wonderful talk. And we'll get to the Q&A after the last presenter's presentation is done. The last talk for this panel will be by Dr. Carmen Anthony. Can I please invite her to stage? Carmen is Associate Professor and Chair of Water, Health and Decisions at the Faculty of ITC, University of Twente. Her mission is to use water and health-related knowledge, information and data to inform improved health-promoting decision-making interventions. She mixes methods rooted in social science with participatory mapping. Carmen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is it on? Yes. All right. So much text? No? Thank you. Thank you so much. Before presenting, I realized, or before starting about my actual talk, I realized while the other speakers have given a bit of context where they come from, I have not prepared this. So maybe briefly, my background is health geography, and I work in a very technological faculty at the University of Twente for geoinformation science and Earth observation, but I'm a huge promoter of social science, which you will see in a minute. Maybe also we work mainly on urban futures, resource security, disaster resilience, and geo-AI. And I link all those topics with my water and health work. And I think that's maybe the only important things to note for now. All right, so we talked a little bit about intent transdisciplinarity today, which is wonderful because the projects that I brought to present to you today, and I'm only going to show you very, very small snippets and insights into these projects, not at all going into detail, just going to give you a bird's view. They all are very intent transdisciplinary. They are all informed by community needs and very localized, very contextualized. So a bit of a different focus than what we have seen so far. So you will see a brief insight into all of those. And besides showing you the breadth of 4 ongoing projects, I also want to focus a little bit on methods. Also bearing in mind that at the different stages you're in right now, this might be actually helpful and useful because it could inform the way you shape your PhDs moving forward. All right, so my field of work is mainly looking at and working with population groups at the margins of society. We heard earlier, not working about or collecting data from, but working with people at the margins of society. So often they live in informality, under not great living conditions, where they're excluded from access to drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, waste management services, which comes with risks related to health. Groups I'm working with mainly these days are both in the global north and global south. In the past, I worked mainly in the global south. More recently, also in Europe, with people experiencing homelessness, with minority communities, with deprived residents in deprived neighborhoods. Main challenge that I'm looking at is the invisibility of many of these groups and the underrepresentation or misrepresentation or non-representation in accessible data sets. Often representatives of the groups I work with face discrimination, and they're very distrusting. They distrust very much in authorities and in people who want to collect data from or about them, which makes it very difficult to actually improve the representation and also their serving their needs better. All right, now that of course is very challenging. I mean, we already heard Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. If you really want to be inclusive and reach everyone by 2030, which I'm sure by now we realize it's not achievable, then we really have to make sure that those who are not in statistics, they're not visible, still they're considered and being reached. So again, this invisibility of a number of groups really hampers improvement for them. And we cannot improve what we cannot see. So again, my main mission is to find out how to best acquire information. 4 projects, again, not in detail, but all of them have in common that they combine a number of different methods rooted in different disciplines, but mainly social science, to untangle and understand better challenges in the context of water, environment, and health, co-create solutions, and also assess feasibility of methods, what works better in some contexts and what works not so good. Not good? Not loud enough? All right. I want to see my notes. All right. With case studies implemented in Germany, Slovakia, Kenya, and the Netherlands, and in very, very close collaboration with the communities, as I mentioned already, but also with civil society organizations, with local governments, etc. Yes. Maybe I should also say, but I think it was implied in the previous slide already, what we face a lot is that the complex life realities that the groups we're working with make it very difficult to reach them because research might not really be very high on the priority list. So those very strong collaborations with the civil society are really, really important also, and very strong community entries as well. So now a lot of visuals for you to enjoy, I hope. This is an insight on how we try to understand better challenges that people experiencing homelessness are facing. There's publications on that if you want to know more. Approach me later if you like. How we try to understand better the situation. We had them guide us through the city where we were working on walking interviews to show us challenges they're facing, opportunities in terms of water and health, where's toilets located, where they seek healthcare if needed. We had them participate in arts-based research where they made collages, etc. And we also had them participate in collaborative mapping. And one of the main findings, what was really interesting, was it's actually really, really challenging to serve better someone who's unhoused, who has a pretty large radius in a very small area of a city, because the place where someone sleeps, the place where someone eats, the place where someone works, the place where someone spends time with friends might be so distant from each other. And if someone wants to access a toilet, for example, or drinking water publicly available free of charge, it might be huge routes to walk for, especially when also maybe the life reality is complicated by having a pet or by substance use disorders or else. Another example is research we're carrying out with marginalized communities in Slovakia with Roma people, which very, very underserved by their governments most of the time. What we do here is we combine satellite imagery with the use of drones to understand not only where are those settlements located, but also what can we see already from above. For example, it's very small, so I don't actually know if you can see it. I don't know how to use it. Oh no, not like this. Okay, well, circled in red, and now the presenter view is gone. Circled in red, what you can see from the current slide, I think I can manage even without help, is the waste collection site, so where people put their garbage. But we also collected stool samples of dogs, dog feces, to understand where there's parasitological risks, a lot of stray dogs that have all kinds of diseases, tried to map that as well. But we also captured information, thank you so much, through photo voice, where we asked people living in these settlements to document challenges they're facing, give them voice through photos, so capture challenges they're facing through their perspective. And also prioritize them as they see most pressing. And this integration of methods rooted in different disciplines and also like from different angles and perspectives really highlighted what are challenges people are facing. A simple survey would never manage to capture the challenges that they're facing, for example, nor would satellite imagery, etc. All right. Another example, we work in planned and unplanned, formal and informal settlements around Nairobi, Kenya, to understand better water insecurities. In the context of well-being, but also related to floods, etc. And here we combine focus group discussions with in-depth interviews, with choice experiments to understand better what would people be willing to pay to improve their services. And here too is really fantastic, and we had group discussions and conversations separate by gender, by age, by formal versus informal. It's amazing what you can see, or what kind of depth of information you get if you let your data collection be driven entirely by qualitative data and just back it up by quantitative. And if you analyze by gender, by age, and by type of settlement. So this was really also super valuable insight, not only in what is the situation, what are specific vulnerabilities, but also what are the very contextualized recommendations. And the final example that I want to highlight is the research carried out in the Netherlands in a disadvantaged neighborhood in the city where I live, Enschede, which has a very, a lot of built infrastructure, very gray, and also, say, lower socioeconomic status residents. So here the idea is how to make sure that these people are very, are climate resilient, how to make sure that they are being well in times of cities getting warmer, or just in general, places getting warmer, extreme weather events getting more unpredictable. So we had them map, and you can see this in the small map there, places that they like, that they frequent, or that they use on hot days, on cold days. But we also brought them together with representatives of the municipality to together, not only on this digital map table that you can see here, but also in an analog manner through Lego, co-design or shape or design together what would be the future for the neighborhood they would like. And that was really also very powerful. This is one of the results of how they transformed their neighborhood. So they really wished for a blue space. really powerful to communicate over. I was just saying to someone, I don't really use AI in my work. This was actually the only time, on how to use to communicate and to imagine and to, understand better the needs of decision maker versus society, etc. This, no need to look at it in detail. It will be published in some form soon. I really want to make a strong case for social science in visibilizing challenges of all sorts, because with different methods, and particularly with combinations of different methods, you can better understand what is the problem and who is affected, why is it a problem and where is it a problem, but also how can we address it, what can we do about it. And I think the projects, I hope that you saw, they try to highlight that only in combination of different methods could this research be really valuable and successful, and actually lead to feasible localized solutions and recommendations. I want to highlight arts-based research because it's a very easy, well, it takes some time to prepare, but it's a really powerful and really nice way for someone to express themselves, if not in words or if not in a survey. Also participatory mapping on where do challenges exist, but also where could solutions be implemented, infrastructure, for example. Group discussions also, if you really let the group carry the dynamic and just only act as facilitator, but also giving voice through photos. So photo voice, having individuals take photo and document challenges they're facing, then facilitate a discussion on how they rank them, why they consider them more or less important than others. It's really powerful too. And this I highlighted already. Co-design and communication can also be really powerful, particularly moving towards impact or really doing, like realizing some of the research finding in practice and policies. No depth here either, no detail here either. I just want to highlight that we're also publishing about reflections on what methods might work better in some groups than in others. And in general, what are pros, what are cons, what is required in terms of preparation. Are they feasible? Are they effective? Good, so wrapping up, I think a little bit later than I should have. It is really challenging to acquire information with population groups that are very invisible and maybe also have a high level of mistrust. And we see that participatory methods rooted in social science can be so powerful. I don't need to read all the pros. I hope I showed it. This can be some really powerful research, research and evidence. What I haven't mentioned is that, of course, we also need to adjust methods because they might not always fit to the context or to the capacity of the group that someone interacts with. So this we documented as well. And just maybe the bottom line that if we really don't want to leave anyone behind, then we have to really become a little bit more creative, inclusive in how we collect data, how we represent individuals and the challenges that they're facing, so we can really move towards improved decision making. Big thank you to 4 teams actually, where a couple of the people involved also contribute to a number of projects. And because we heard it before, I just want to also highlight that we are very engaged also in science communication, publishing in newspapers, prepared with, by and sold through people experiencing homelessness, for example, or in social worker magazines without impact factor. So really for society, newspapers and radio channels as well. But also, for example, we bring the findings to the municipalities, to the mayors in the Slovakian communities we work with, etc. But we also bring them to the classroom. This is a school in Slovakia with Roma kids only, where we don't only show what were the findings, but also how does research work and what are the different methods that we use, just to get them more curious and perhaps also make it easier to consider a scientific career at some point as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Can I also request Elisabeth to join us on the stage? I think Anne-Marie can hear us and see us. Yeah. Great. So, it was fascinating to listen to each of the speaker, and we kind of got a sense of the use of data at different scales and different approaches, different methodologies. So there's a lot to kind of, chew on for everyone here. I'm just curious if there's a question that anyone has to start with, or, there's one there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a question there. And before you ask the question, please introduce yourselves. and also keep it short so that we can have more questions. So we'll start with the gentleman here.
I'll bring the catch box.
Right, yes.
Yeah, hello everyone.
You're getting something to amplify your voice.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Jen, and I recently finished my master's degree in island sustainability at the University of Groningen in the Faculty of Social Sciences as well. And now I'm doing a PhD at the Environmental Sciences Institute at Leiden University. And my question is more geared towards Carmen. How do you kind of handle epistemic differences in academia? I would say, I think in doing these participatory approaches, you kind of spend more time explaining why it is science, rather than explaining your work in general. The results of your work, that's kind of how I feel navigating this new world of science in my institute. So I guess in general, how do you navigate epistemological differences?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we just take one more so that we can just, in case there's another question, so we'll go to the next question. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Vishal, and I'm a final year PhD candidate and working on coastal plus and adaptation. My question is to Anne-Marie. You showed this graph, the chart of income, sales, and property loss, and how financial institutes might avoid investing in those areas. Is there a take-home message for financial institutes that, how do you see adaptation in that field? And the studious projections also consider adaptation when they are going to invest in those areas?
Yeah, but the sound is breaking up. Can you put the question in the chat?
Yes. I'm gonna ask it to push again, so you repeat short and good time.
Yeah.
When you're talking about investment by financial institutes in crop yields, you also consider adaptation.
Just hold that for a second, because I think why don't we do something? If it's okay, let's Carmen, respond to the first question, and then we go on to the next one. So Carmen.
So I'm not sure I fully understood because there were different parts to your question. I think you were also one thing. Of course, you're talking about epistemic differences, and me taking time and explaining what is the value of what I do.
No, I think in general, I would say that people who do participatory work or like arts-based research, we spend more time explaining why it is science, or like convincing other people why it is science, rather than explaining our work.
This was kind of not related to
no.
Okay, understood. I'm like, alright, now I understand. Well, maybe I don't actually perceive it that way, to be honest. Maybe because I personally surfed through a number of different disciplines. I'm a geographer by training who did a PhD in a public health institute and university clinic, but in geography. So mixing geography and health, and then from there, but always using social science methods in geography as well. From there, moving to a School of Global Health with in a Department of Environmental Science and Engineering in Water Institute, where we link research, policy, practice, but still looking at water and health, still using social science, still using geography, still collecting spatial, non-spatial, individual, collective data. I do understand that it's always a challenge that we have to explain what we do to others, but I think, I don't know, maybe I was lucky in the groups that I worked in, the consortium I was part of. We were always looking at how can we address a certain topic from different directions and from different angles, bringing in the best that our sciences or our disciplines or our backgrounds can offer, rather than focusing on how exactly is what defined. So we were always playing to our strengths more than to what could be the difference, what could be the challenges. But it's always a major discussion. I mean, even when you say quantitative, someone from someone from social science will understand something very different than someone who's from environmental science or another field. So it's always, I think, in every research I've ever done, or anyone here has ever done, and will ever do, it will always be questioned. So I think just trying to be open, having a dialogue, starting a conversation with, we all might perceive things a little bit different. Here's what I understand. What do you understand? To at least have not a common understanding, but an understanding for the other. So you know what the other might be talking about, while we might be misunderstanding what otherwise might be misunderstanding. So yeah, not really an answer, but maybe just a little bit of a elaboration. That's always a challenge. But I think openness and trying to find for yourself what you mean and try to understand what the other means and trying to move forward on the topic and not so much on the problems of the sciences or the potential challenges that might create barrier to collecting or interpreting valuable data. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I just quickly add to something?
Can I add something to that?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Can you hear me? Yeah, can I add something to that? Yeah.
You can hear us, right?
Because
Yes.
I would like to stress the importance of involving, let's say, social scientists also in the, let's say, the climate-related work. Climate scientists, when they talk about the projections, for instance, so what is the weather likely to be in future, they think only in terms of maybe temperature and total precipitation. But for the users of this climate information, it is much more interesting to know when the rains might start or the length of the growing season. So you need people who are able to discuss and to talk to people to find out what they really need in terms of climate information to base their decisions on. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, this is really needed, and yeah, it's not easy yeah, from this different discipline. It's easy to say, but it's complex and to work together because we don't use the same language. but yeah, it's totally needed. I mean, I have a lot of examples in mind, but yeah.
I just wanted to say that, we organized a Decolonizing Science PhD course at IHE, and this question of what is recognized as science is animated by questions of power. Who decides what is science? And I think the way to navigate that, as we have realized now, through all these discussions, is how do you see yourself, positioning yourself doing it? What kind of confidence you have in that? And also getting into discussions around what constitutes science itself. To be having that discussion with others who make those demands for you to perform science and show that this is science. So that is a very important aspect of the discussion. Yeah. So now we can go to the next question. Push has been waiting.
I will type the question now.
Can we type it?
Yes.
When you projected
Can you speak closer to the microphone?
okay, yeah. Okay. When you projected the income and sales for crops in different parts of the world, you also consider adaptation for RCP 3.5
Income? Yeah. Okay. For crops?
Do you also consider adaptation in those RCP scenarios?
Yeah. That's the question.
When you talk adaptation in the scenarios, you talk about the climate change scenarios we have been using. Okay, I think that's a very good question. The figures I showed are based on the worst case scenario. But we also assessed, let's say, the projections the impact of the projections on yield and the effect of adaptation measures to mitigate risk due to climate change. We also assess those, let's say, steps with different climate scenarios. So not only the worst case scenario, we didn't focus on the RCP 4.5 because that is in fact the situation we are already in, but we focused also on RCP 6.5 and, as I said, the worst case scenario. Is that an answer to your question?
He looks satisfied.
Thanks.
Yes. So,
Okay.
yes. There's a question there, and there's another one on the back.
Can I also ask a question about having it? Is it okay? You know what? It's all right.
Thank you very much. I'm Celia from IGRAC. I'm doing a PhD at the moment, trying to finish. I have two questions, one for Carmen and one for Anne-Marie. So I'm going to formulate it for Carmen. So I'm wondering about the sustainability of the project, the GRAC project. Like, which are the climate providers, and how, once the project is finished, like how did they ensure they are going to ensure the sustainability of local actors? And also another question I have, it's like, besides climate data, like in the climate data value chains, we know that there are like other information that is key in providing value. So what other type of information besides climate data did you find important? For instance, like socioeconomic aspects in the, like when you were doing the potential value of the climate information. And my question for Carmen is, can you give a bit of advice about how you, like, what are your strategies as an entry point for marginalized societies? Because you said like they are like normally untrustful. So I was thinking, like, do you use like local NGOs, or and also how do you access the marginalized people within the marginalized societies? So, for instance, women or
Thanks. My question is to Elisabeth about groundwater. So from the presentation, we can see this kind of a base of the knowledge pyramid. The data is rich in North America, rich in Europe, rich in Australia, and uniquely rich in South Africa. I research a lot in South Africa on water, energy, food systems, and interaction with hydrological variables. And my name is Tumaini. So the question is this a case whereby the base of the pyramid, the data part, the data that is available is only in predominantly highly sophisticated areas of traditional science, physical science, and then the second one is, what is this mean about understanding groundwater as a contribution to the total availability of all water assets in all these regions?
It's for Elisabeth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there was before.
All right, there were three questions. The reason is there was another person behind you. Can you just yeah. So let's start with the first question with Anne-Marie, and then Carmen, and then Elisabeth. Sorry.
Yes, Anne-Marie, you can start responding.
Yeah. Okay. Let me start with the second question. Thank you very much for this question. So the second question was, what other types of information besides climate data do you think is important? Well, I think it is very important to also include socioeconomic data and data about, let's say, land use, soil type, water availability. I can give you an example. When it comes to potential climate adaptation options, to mitigate the risk due to climate change, okay, you can give information about the yield and maybe a reduction in yield losses due to an adaptation option. But if that, if for instance, improved seed is not available or it's too expensive, then and you can't sell your crop for, let's say, a good price so that the cost-benefit ratio is positive, it doesn't make any sense. So in the assessment, and I didn't want to go into detail during my presentation, but it's very important to look at together with the stakeholders to look at the feasibility and the cost benefits of climate change adaptation measures. And then it comes to the sustainability. What we also do in the project to increase the sustainability is we focus very much on training, awareness raising of, for instance, local staff, extension officers in the field. The material extension workers are using in when they provide extension or advice to farmers. We looked at the financial sector to create an enabling financial environment to make them willing or try to persuade them to invest in value chain development. And last but not least, I think also the policy and especially price policies and legal frameworks provided by the government are very important to look into to, well, at least increase the sustainability of a project like this. Is that answering your question?
Yes. Okay. Thanks so much for your question. I would love to know what's your PhD about.
I made so many notes that now I won't be able to disentangle what I wrote because I could talk with you about, for hours about community entry and in general.
How to engage with communities, whether marginalized or else.
In research activities.
You want advice. So I think the advice, or maybe in general I should say, it's very contextual. It differs so much from place to place. It differs so much related to the topic that you want to investigate.
But I guess in all of the... Yeah, it's
better? Yeah, it works. Excellent, thank you so much. So I think it's always a combination of a number of things. First of all, regardless of whether you fly a drone over a place or you just want to engage with citizens, you will always need some sort of a formal approval from those who are responsible politically, from top down. You need some sort of an approval, but also from community leaders or whoever is the traditional leadership of the place that you want to do research in. But then, of course, you also need the buy-in of the community. So, I mean, any research I've ever been supervising or been involved in or carried out myself, it takes so much time because you need to be visible for a long period of time. You need to be accessible. You cannot just rush, go do whatever cool workshop and disappear. It will never work. So some of these mini studies, also, it looked like small studies because very small sample sizes that you just saw took years of preparation, even if you end up with an N of 13 or so. So it's a combination of different things. Of course, we always there's a lot of preparation work to be done when you want to carry out research, like what we do. Of course, you need to map out who are the actors in a certain area, what are the civil society organization, NGOs, of course, but also what plays a role, like what community groups are very important. In the case of Roma communities in Slovakia, we cooperated with MOB, so with Roma police, for example, have been possible otherwise. What's very helpful, and then of course in Kenya, for example, we didn't collect the data, like I wouldn't go in this case to Kenya to collect the data, but we had the data collected to very close collaborators who are very much rooted in the communities already. It very much depends, I would say, but it will take a lot of time. And you have to do very careful mapping and understanding who plays what role and who. Yeah, and I guess, well, maybe my experience is I probably answered many more questions than I raised in any setting I've ever worked. So also being open to that, coming with time and allowing a lot of questions. And then of course also expectation management too. So I think in all the research that I've presented, but also all the research I've ever done, we always closely collaborate with decision makers from the beginning. Why? Because we don't just want to collect data. Giving nothing in return, at least we want to create very high awareness and pressure on decision makers and what are the challenges that their community are facing and that they should also be addressing. So that also helps very much with communities actually. Okay, I can actually get my voice heard, or I can at least try to get my voice heard.
I will need you to repeat the first question. I'm not sure I fully understand. Okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the first question is the hegemony of availability of very good data sets in North America, South Africa, Europe, Australia, and all other parts of the world.
Yes.
Is either non-existent or not reported. Does it mean they don't have groundwater, or does it mean there's no way to?
No. Yeah, unfortunately, on the global maps hide a lot. So yeah, of course, you see developed countries that are able to maintain a highly representative network. But we have, on the global map, we have also small islands that we cannot see. We have other countries in Africa sharing data, Rwanda, the Gambia, in Middle East. So yeah, on the global map, sometimes we cannot analyze it. So we may have data, but we cannot make information out of it because quality, short term. But so yeah, of course there is a cost for this country too, and it's very challenging. At the same time, what we try to do is coming back to the basic, and the indicator they show and the ranking. What we don't work in complex models. Whatever data you have, you can make some. You can probably get some information out of it. And of course, we have to interpret it with more care, or the decision you take. You need to understand the uncertainties. But those are very easy analysis that the countries can do. So yeah, the strategy is a bit to make them understand that they can get value from the data, and then make the circle works, no? And then invest more in monitoring, in understanding the groundwater system.
So we have one more question at the back. We are running short of time. We know I've seen 3 hands around here. Let's take it and see how much we can make time. Please go ahead.
All right. My name is Alfred. I do a PhD on co-creating adaptation pathways towards nature-inclusive food systems. My question is to Dr. Carmen. You've greatly shown the value of bottom-up and co-creation approaches in collecting data. But what would the next step be? What lessons learned can you share on effectively operationalizing this data towards a broader application, perhaps?
Of
course, we would wish that all the amazing designs that our citizens in the Netherlands and in Enschede they came up with to improve their neighborhoods. There was so many, and I just showed this one blue space, and there were so many fantastic ideas. Of course, it's not for us to implement or to realize, but we continue to working very closely with the municipality, and they were a part of this exercise where those solutions were being designed. They were actually helping. They were doing this together with the citizens, and already we have. We're not only just applying to follow-up projects on how to do more research or deeper research, but thankfully this research, because we're also trying to be smart in when we do what kind of research, this research came exactly at a time where the municipality is changing the neighborhood already. So actually the plans that were proposed by the citizens, whether or not they will be realized, I don't know, but it was fantastic input for the municipality. They actually say often they do things like this with ChatGPT, and then they come up, ChatGPT comes up with something that might then not be modifiable, etc. They found it incredibly useful as input and also to understand what do citizens really want, because it's very different from what they think that citizens need. So our role in like moving this forward, implementing, is limited, but we're closely in dialogue with the municipality who can actually move this forward. Does this answer the question?
Yes, but more specifically, what role can you play more actively?
Now in what happens next, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, we're very available for the municipality as advisors, for example. So we have the project that I showed was a very, very small scale, very low funding, seed fund, very mini study, only just 1 year. But we're also carrying out the Horizon EU project, which runs for a longer period of time, and we're also preparing the next one already, where the same people who are taking the decisions who have been involved in this are also on the advisory board, and we are now advising them. So we're trying to have very strong alliances between those who are and hopefully will be representing the decision-making bodies. So we can continue advice, and they can continue also they can continue informing the way that our research goes, or for example, when there's more initiatives to change in a neighborhood, that we can start with we know exactly where research would be most valuable, so it can actually be realized. So I guess the answer is we try to advise decision making, and decision makers continue to advise us in that specific localization. Yeah.
Thank you. So quickly, how many people have questions? You have one here, there's one there, and there was one in that row. You've sacrificed yourself? No, there is one, right?
No, but I can ask later.
Okay.
I'll ask later.
Okay, so what we can do is quickly, if you can keep it short, just take the questions and give quick responses and then move on to lunch, because you've already crossed 5 minutes over into lunch break. So can we keep it really short, the questions? So we'll start from there and come down here. We can actually pass it on.
Okay. Who had their hand up?
So just throw it down here.
Okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Acharya. So I'm working on uncertainties associated with global hydrological modeling. So my question is about how do because Anamari presented I just got only one number, like 8% yield in potato will be increased in the future under 8.5 scenario. So how, but we do know if we use different models, different climate projections, we have to get different answers. So, but when it comes to the application, the investor or the policymaker, they want one number. They don't want it could be this or it could be that. So, but my question is what kind of methods did you use to communicate that uncertainty to the final end user?
Great. Next question.
Hi, my name is Utkarsh, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Columbia. And I have a question how could defining the indicators potentially create biases in the research? Because we have different databases and we have different custodians of the databases, and defining these indicators might potentially create biases. For example, something like indigenous rights or gender equality could have different indicators to be captured, and defining it could potentially hamper and create biases.
Is there someone specific in mind you have a question for?
No, this question is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quickly, is there anybody? I think yeah. So in that case, Anna-Marie, did you get the question from the audience? You got it.
Yes,
Can we have a quick
yes.
response to that, and then we move to the rest of us.
Shall I start? Yeah. So the question is application of models and methods we use to communicate uncertainties. Let me start saying that the projections were based, or we worked towards the projections with CMIP6 models, which is an ensemble of a huge number of models to decrease uncertainty as much as possible. And the same counts for the impact of, let's say, future temperature and precipitation on yield. We used the WOFOS model, and we used an ensemble of climate models to decrease, let's say, the uncertainty in in the final results. We did not use any models to communicate uncertainty. We did use certain terms to indicate that there is a certain degree of uncertainty. Sometimes we use the words, we expect that, or probably rainfall will start in this period. Sometimes we provided a range in terms instead of just numbers to show the uncertainty. But we did, and I'm not sure if there are models to communicate uncertainty, but by providing ranges or the maps I showed instead of bar charts, for instance, if you want to indicate the effect of climate change on yield, it's also a method to deal with uncertainty and to communicate it. How could defining the indicators can potentially create biases in the research? Yeah, well, I think the research community and the climate change research community uses different indicators for assessing resilience and climate resilience. So I think there is a huge field of work still. What do we mean by climate resilience? And what are, let's say, effective indicators to measure or to value resilience, and in particular climate resilience? So I can tell you about the indicators we have been using, but maybe that goes too far.
Quick response from the other panelists on this? Yes.
Quickly on the indicators, but not indicators, I'll expand. What you talk about with someone, or what you measure, or with who you talk about something, and who else might be present, and why they might find it important, and when you investigate a certain phenomenon, and where you do that, that all can introduce bias. And I think that's why it's particularly important to come together with different disciplines and combine a number of methods, a couple that we're doing, for example, combining modeling with social sciences, etc., to really understand better and get different pieces to the puzzle. So integrating different sciences, because yes, bias can be introduced not only at an indicator level, but throughout the research process at every possible step, in my opinion. So that's what I would think. You have to just be, I mean, in the way you approach a certain problem, you have to just consider a number of different factors, and you can only do that if you bring different disciplines forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's it to say. Yeah, so the idea is to analyze with different methods, different angles, from different disciplines, because the objective is to understand, no, and a system. So this is the way we can address the limitations and the barriers.
So thank you so much. I just want to wrap up by saying, by tying it to the wonderful keynote that Pujan gave in the morning, that I think one useful compass is to look at working with the community and not for the community. And if you're working with the community and you're working with emotional and intellectual honesty, they see that and they recognize it. But if it seems like this is part of some project activity that you're getting more out of than they are, then it's going to be a different conversation altogether. But it's been a fascinating set of conversations on data and climate and how we can use different kinds of methods. I thank the panelists for their wonderful contributions. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you to all, both of you, and thank you, wonderful audience. And sorry for the delay. Lunch is waiting for you downstairs.